Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We've got Brianna Joy Gray on. She's going to be talking about Joe Biden's rapidly diminishing stimulus plan. We also have author Kurt Anderson on. He wrote an incredible book called Evil Geniuses, tracking the sort of hijacking of our democracy towards radical libertarian ends and corporatist ends. But we wanted to start with a new push within the House and the Senate to try to lift the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
That's right. So this is really interesting. So Bernie Sanders, obviously the Senate Budget Committee chairman, who is pushing $15 per hour, $15 minimum wage per hour into this budget reconciliation bill, which would be bundled into COVID. And the theory is that if they're going to go for reconciliation, realistically, you can go for it twice in 1 year, but it's very difficult, once in a year. So then you've got to try and get as much as you possibly can into the bill. So where we are right now, let's throw this up there on the screen from Bernie Sanders, from the CBO, is that there's part of a problem that they have is that the Congressional Budget Office has scored the $15 minimum wage as revenue neutral. But Sanders, kind of looking at some of the legislative maneuvering that would be required here, means that they would have to basically overrule the parliamentarian in the U.S. Senate. That would require all of the Democrats to be on board with such a maneuver, and it would require votes within like a subcommittee. I was talking with somebody about the exact processes about this yesterday. So it absolutely can be done if they want to get it done. Here's the question. Do they have the will to get it done, Krystal?
And Isn't that always the question?
But here's the thing. Remember when Bernie, in that like pathetic live stream back in March when Bernie endorsed Joe, I will say the one thing that Joe gave Bernie was like, I understand that you now support a $15 minimum wage.
That's right.
And he's like, that's right, Joe. Yeah, I know. Everyone's blacking this out of our memories.
So painful.
But look, it is the one thing that Biden committed to on the campaign trail with Bernie Sanders. It's also another thing. He didn't mention his inaugural address, but he did speak about it in his economic speech that he gave when he was the president-elect. Haven't heard much about it since. So the real question is he going to stake his political capital both on COVID relief and on a $15 minimum wage,
right,
which is overwhelmingly popular, just passed in the red state of Florida by like 70% of the vote.
Yeah, it was way more popular in Florida than either Republicans or Democrats. And, I mean, if you look at the polling across the country, it is way more popular than any politician, $15 minimum wage. So, yeah, this is the same debate that we've been talking about with the relief bill. Do you do it through regular order or do you try to do it through reconciliation? Now, regular order seems very unlikely you'd be able to get enough Republicans to go along, to get over that 60-vote filibuster threshold. And obviously, they're not getting rid of the filibuster anytime soon. So that would be, nice, symbolic attempt to put people on the record. I'm all for that, getting people to take tough votes. Ultimately, would it get through? Very unlikely. They did introduce this bill yesterday, just to get into the mechanics of it a little bit, because this is significant. So it would not be $15 immediately.
Yeah, it's a phase.
It would be phased in over 5 years. Couple things about it that's kind of like, we've been waiting a long time to get to $15.
2009, I think.
$15 really, honestly, now is sort of insufficient. So they're pushing it down the road a little bit further, but that's the way that this bill has always been written, and that is, in fact, what Bernie has been pushing for a long time. So that's one piece. Couple things that are really good about it is, number one, this would also increase the tipped minimum wage so that servers and other people who rely on tips are not getting screwed over there. Also would end the practice of people with disabilities getting lower wages, which is completely abhorrent and unconscionable. So those are really, really good things that would be included in this. One of the things that's a good and a little bit questionable to me about it is part of the reason why we end up having these fights every decade or so is because Congress loves to pass an increase to the minimum wage as just like a one-time deal.
Right.
So what they should be doing is pegging it to inflation so that once you increase the minimum wage, it's at a set level and it keeps going up as things get more expensive. Why don't they do it? Well, the fact of the matter is Democrats in particular like to have this political fight because it is popular.
Of course.
It gives them something they can beat the Republicans over the head with. Of course, the Republicans play along with the game by being opposed to the most basic, obvious things that the American people broadly support. But in this bill, it actually would be pegged not to inflation, but to median wage increases. So it is pegged to something. We need to get an expert in here to say if that's the best thing for it to be pegged to. It makes me a little bit nervous because we know that wages have been stuck for a long time. Those are some of the mechanics of the actual bill that are being debated. So then the question of, okay, if we're going to actually force this through budget reconciliation, what does that look like and what needs to happen there? So Congressional Budget Office, for something to go through budget reconciliation, excuse me, it has to have a budgetary impact. Now, I think it's incredibly obvious that raising the minimum wage has a budgetary impact. Why? Because then you have fewer people who rely on things like food stamps. So this decreases the amount that the government has to spend on social means-tested social welfare programs because more people are above the poverty line and making wages on which they can survive. So it should have a budgetary impact. Sanders' tweet from Jeff Stein that you put up before says basically right now the CBO is saying, no, it doesn't have a budgetary impact, therefore you can't do it through reconciliation. I do want to add here, this is important as well. Dick Durbin, who is the number 2 in the House, also supportive of pushing this through reconciliation. That's what it means when it says a simple majority vote there. So this is not just Bernie Sanders out on his own saying that they should approach it this way. And as you were saying, and I think this is really, really important, the fact that the CBO is scoring it in what I think is a stupid and wrong way doesn't close this avenue.
Yeah.
It just means that they would have to be more aggressive and take a few additional votes to overrule the Senate parliamentarian, essentially, in order to get this done. So I don't want to make this overly complicated, but basically the bottom line is they can do this through a simple majority vote. They just have to have the intestinal fortitude to actually pull that off.
Well, that's the real question, right? Isn't it, Krystal?
Yes,
Whether
it is.
that's actually going to happen. I'm not going to hold my breath, given that you can't even get $2,000 check legislation on the floor flat.
How about that?
Has you actually even seen a member of the Democratic caucus who has come out against Schumer's strategy here and Biden? I haven't even seen one. I'm not even sure if Bernie has called for it, putting a $2,000 flat check legislation that's on the floor, even though it's the most politically obvious thing in the world. But Sanders did talk a little bit about this yesterday with the minimum wage. Let's take a listen to what he said.
The issue of starvation wages in America is a national emergency. If we cannot get enough Republicans to vote for this legislation under regular order, we cannot simply take no for an answer. We must raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, either through budget reconciliation by a simple majority vote in the Senate. And as the incoming chair of the Senate Budget Committee, that is exactly what I will be fighting to do.
So listen, Democrats tend to get caught up in these questions of like procedures and how bold should we be. On the politics of this, people don't care how you get it done.
No, they don't.
All they care about is that you get it done. Do you think you're going to get punished in the 2022 midterms because you overruled the Senate parliamentarian?
Yeah, who's the voter out there? Like, I was with you, but you overruled the Senate parliamentarian.
And that's
so
just a
I'm
bridge
out.
too far for me. I mean, really, honestly.
Most people in this country don't even know who the vice president is. Like, they don't even, or the secretary of defense, or that's fine. They're just living their lives.
I feel the same way about the filibuster debate, not to go on a tangent, but it is related of like all this obsession, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, of like, oh, we can't get rid of filibuster because we're moderates and that's like an extreme thing to do. No one cares about the filibuster. They care about what you ultimately deliver for the American people. This is a perfect case in point. So to me, the politics of this is completely clear. It will be wildly popular if you do what it takes to actually get this done. That's the politics on the policy part of it. It also will be tremendously impactful. And look, again, I don't think that this is enough. I think it should happen faster. I think we should be looking at $25 an hour because this fight for 15 has been going on for a decade now, and they're just now getting around to doing it 5 years from now. But let's put the Economic Policy Institute's analysis here. Look, this would lift pay for almost 32 million workers. That's nearly a quarter of the United States workforce, which tells you just how crappy the labor market is, that so many people work so hard for a low wage at this point in this country. It would disproportionately benefit people of color, disproportionately benefit women. It would help to lessen inequality. This is not a silver bullet. It's not nearly enough, but it would help. And it's popular. On the note of this being somewhat insufficient and the fact that we even have to beg for this and hope that maybe possibly it's going to get done, great comedian Kylie Brakeman put on a video yesterday that sort of sums that point up very nicely. Let's take a listen.
Oh, hello, Pores. I'm back with more shiny crumbs for you. Well, you did it. You got your $15 an hour. It's that thing you've been asking for 10 years, and now you finally have it 5 years from now. Just think, in 1 hour, you'll make $15 whole before tax. Okay, Mr. Moneybags, look at you running around above the poverty line.
So there you go. It's insufficient. It's pathetic that it's not even certain that this will get through. It's not certain at all. It's not even close to certain. I'm not even sure it's a 50-50 proposition. But the fact that we're so far behind and are just begging to get to $15 an hour 5 years from now kind of tells you the state of politics in general.
No, that's right. And of course the Republicans are fools. They always have been, whenever. Because they're like, well, the worst way to do this would be this. And I'm like, yeah, but no, you don't have an alternative. So shut up. And that's really how I feel just really about the debate. Because they're like, oh, well, this and, look, I don't want to hear it because it's not like you have an actual alternative in terms of raising wages, and that's why you lose every single debate on earth. So let me get that out of the way. But the second thing is the real question is about whether they have the actual will in order to get this done. We have not seen legislative will to actually get something done in the Democratic Party, probably since Obamacare, and then even then, it was like the stripped-down version of Obamacare and more. So it's been a long time since we saw them act. On the Republican side, the last time that they did anything like this is when they tried to repeal Obamacare with budget reconciliation. McCain obviously famously came in and made sure that that didn't happen. But the key point is that when parties are united around something, it's actually easy to get something done. The question is actually getting it done. Now, it's a good thing that Dick Durbin is in on it, but we don't know Schumer. We also don't know what the White House says. The White House says they're for $15 per hour minimum wage. They could actually even force the debate if they wanted to. There's nothing is stopping Joe Biden from walking up to a podium and saying, I want $15 per hour now. It's got to be a part of that package. Red line for me. Every single member of my caucus, you better vote for it or you're dead in 2022.
And we'll do what it takes.
And I'll do everything that I need in order to get it done. Again, this is what he was elected to do. I'm very skeptical that he's actually going to do it. And when you don't have the will all the way down from the top, and especially within the caucus, then it just defaults to King Mansion, Queen Cinema, and it probably won't happen.
Yeah, and they feel they get to pat themselves on the back because they introduced the legislation, but they don't actually have the will to really do it and get the job done because they care more about the political signaling ultimately than the results for you. But we'll wait and withhold judgment and see what happens here.
Right.
Just always want to put those cautionary notes in there. And we are going to tell you what's on our radars. That is next.